Criminal masterminds of Reddit. What is the worst crime you've gotten away with? When I was 12, I walked into a large, Target-like, store with my brother, grabbed the nicest bike we could find, walked it up to the customer service counter, and asked to return the bike my brother got for his birthday. They asked if we had a receipt, to which we replied, no. They apologized and said we needed to go home and get the receipt before we could return it. We asked if we were going to be able to leave the store with the bike if we didn't have a receipt. In response, they called security over to escort us safely out with the bike. It was too easy. Taken from my post in the most disgusting thing you have ever done thread. I'm sure this is some sort of crime. Apologies in advance for this being long. We have a big outdoor music festival here every year that is in a large park downtown. They also shut down the streets around it as well as use the civic center right by the park. When I was 17, we went like my then GF, and I did every year. Well, it was the last day of the event, and it was coming to an end on Sunday night. As we were sitting in front of the stage for one of the last acts, I get the ever so dreadful churning and gargling in my stomach that I always know is going to end in diarrhea. The porta potties are about a football field away and they always had long lines, so I decided to tough it out since I was about to head home. It progressed further to the point that I'm starting to sweat and getting sharp pains as we begin packing up and walking out. I have to walk about 4 blocks over to a parking garage where I and her family, are parked. So, we get there, I'm clenching trying to hold it together, and she is doing the usual drawn-out teenage goodbye which feels like an eternity. Finally, she leaves, and I head up to the middle deck, about 3 floors up. They were on the bottom, to my car. As I walk toward my car, she calls my phone and informs me she has my keys still, were in her purse, and to come back down and get them. Now, at this point, it has rapidly progressed to the point I am a penguin walking around this parking garage about to lose the good fight. I get back down and get my keys, she draws out the "I love you, I'll miss you, blah blah blah" again, and I'm about to just run away. She leaves and I think maybe I can get back in and just hold it till I get to the porta potty. No dice, since the event was over, they wouldn't let anyone back in. I make it back to the garage, dripping buckets of sweat, having to stop every 10 feet or so to clinch and wait for the all-temporary clear. There is no public elevator in this garage, so I'm between floors, in the stairwell, when it's game time. Nothing could hold it back. It was as if someone had kicked me in the stomach and there was no holding back. I fling my pants, boxers off and the most horrible chunky liquid spews out. There is so much of it that it starts running down the stairs and all of a sudden, click, the door on the bottom floor, 2 flights of stairs below me, open. I quickly wipe my bottom with my boxers and throw my pants back on. As I'm entering my floor's door I hear, OMFG, OMG OMG OMG, WTF. I hop in my car and take off. Flash forward to the next day. We are sitting around watching TV and they run a news story about the event. Apparently, the doorway I lost it at was also the floor that has the entrance to the mayor's office. They are looking for the vandals, and there may be a reward for any information. At this point, being 17, I'm freaking out thinking, what if cameras saw me? What if they saw my car and start questioning people? What if they DNA test the poo? My GF is utterly disgusted at the story and thinks people like that should be put down. A few days later, I get a call from the police department that I need to come down to the station. I'm of course freaking out, and immediately turn pale white according to my mom. We make it down to the station and I am at the point of being in tears thinking I'm going to jail. Turns out they had recovered my stolen car stereo that was stolen a few months back. They just needed me to sign off on it. Not a major crime, but it's interesting to me. When I was 18, 32 now, I got arrested for shoplifting at a hardware store. I was into drugs, broke, and needed money, so I was taking things to return later for cash. They let you do that at the time without a receipt. I got caught stuffing items behind my belt by an off-duty cop who was in the aisle next to me looking through the cracks. As I walked out of the store, security nabbed me, and more cops came. Cops had me standing with my hands on a table by the main entrance while they talked to the manager. They had already discovered about $40 worth of items I had taken. But when they were asking me to unload the items, I unloaded all but one. A $200 thermostat or something. Anyway, as I was standing there at the table with the whole store watching me from behind, I very discreetly reached over and pulled it out of my belt, stuck it between my thighs, and wiggled it slowly down my legs all the way to my feet, and kicked it off to the side. Somehow, nobody saw it. That little feat was the difference between a Class C misdemeanor, theft under $50, and a Class B. A difference of about $2,000 in fines and up to 6 months of jail time. Not to mention lawyer fees. Spent a few hours in the city jail, got bailed out by my girlfriend. And it never went on my record. When I was a kid, a couple of friends and I stripped the local airport runway for the light covers. Long story short, we thought they were pretty cool, and the possession of one of the two color ones from the end of the runway was a status symbol in our neighborhood. Eventually, they let us go with a "stay out of trouble until you're 16 and it goes away" deal. I learned later that we were one cover from a felony charge. The one more cover was missing, but not recovered, which explained their continued grilling over where we put them. One of the hiding places was through a foundation vent, into the crawlspace. Another was in a hollow tree. A third was in the shallow water of a pond. We seriously had so much haul that we couldn't take it all home easily at first. Then we thought about the fact that we really could only keep one each at home, and we just needed to stash them for now. Years later I got a Christmas gift. It was a slightly dirty, and a bit cracked, two-color light cover from the airport. It turns out, Dad was cleaning out the crawlspace and found that one more cover, approximately 25 years later. It now sits on proud display. Me and 3 buddies were pulling a senior prank in high school. We snuck out to the parking lot and were removing all of the license plates from the underclassmen and administrators' cars. Our plan was to take everybody's license plate off except for seniors and throw them all in a pile at the front of the lot. We were doing pretty well when one of the basketball coaches happens to walk out and see heads bobbing between cars. I heard him scream and I dove under a truck. All 3 of my buddies got caught and had to spend 2 weeks in an alternative school while I got away scot-free. That was the beginning and end of my criminal career. I once broke someone's jaw in a drunken fight. The sound that it made still haunts me to this day. I fled the scene and have never faced any legal consequences. However, I did see a grainy CCTV photo of myself in the paper the next week. I'm in no way proud of what I did, or getting away with it, but you can't change the past. When I was a kid I had a fascination with fire and explosives and built a lot of little firecracker things, and rocket engines, and stole black powder from my dad and whatnot. When I was 19, I had a bright idea. I got a Colorado 2 cartridge, emptied it, and filled it with gunpowder. I put a long fuse in that and put that inside a 20 ounces Mountain Dew bottle full of gasoline. I put a cigarette on the end of the fuse to act as a delay. A friend and I cruised around downtown looking for somewhere to put this thing. We came across an old van at the end of a quiet street with no houses nearby for quite a way. It was a really run-down, abandoned area and I knew nobody would be nearby. So, I put this thing on the front passenger seat, lit the cigarette, and we got in the car and took off again. We drove down the freeway for a while, turned around, and came back to find the entire highway covered in thick, black smoke. We got close to the area, and I peered over the edge of the bridge. It seemed like my design had worked. The inner charge first turned the gas into a mist, then ignited it, pushing everything out, turning the whole van into one big engine cylinder. The hood was laying 15 feet away, the windows were all blown out, and the van was on fire from bumper to bumper. We got out of there and drove up to the bluffs where we could see it. We watched a whole lot of firefighters work on this van for the better part of an hour. It was quite an adrenaline rush. I made the mistake of telling a couple of other friends about it, people I definitely should not have trusted. Not long after that they and I got into a disagreement about something and the next thing I know, I'm on the phone with the police. They want me and my girlfriend to come down to the station to talk. So we go to the police station. They had received a tip that I was the one who set the fire. They questioned my girlfriend and me for 4 hours. Eventually, they mentioned a detective who was a longtime friend of the family, who told them I had always had an interest in bomb making and such. I confessed. The cops came to my apartment and turned the place upside down. They ended up finding a couple of bottle rockets, a few shotgun shells, and a book on military history. I had been tipped off a day prior that this was coming, so I took everything in my place remotely bomb-related, put it in a trash can, and dumped it in a porta potty 2 counties away. They brought me back to the police station for more questions. They asked me why I had chosen this particular van. I said it was because it was clearly abandoned and nobody was around for a long way. They said, "So you didn't intend to hurt anyone with this thing?" I said, "No, of course not, I just wanted to see what it would do." They told me they weren't able to locate the owner of the van, and that it had previously been appraised at $50. They told me to go home, stay put, and expect a phone call. That was 14 years ago. I'm still waiting for the phone call. TLDR. I blew up a van with a homemade bomb. I was about 7 years old and had my first pocket knife. I got this knife from my grandpa. This, however, got nothing to do with the story. Well, me and my best friend Karen at that time were outside playing in the early winter in northern Germany. It gets dark at around 5 to 6 p.m. and we were still outside since we had holidays. However, we were so bored and decided to do something. I am the mastermind of our criminal duo who wanted to do some bad things. Karen was just a really cute girl and my best friend at that time. So, we went around the block to the pub where all the bicycles stand outside while the owners of the bicycles are inside the pub drinking. I take out my pocket knife and put it into the first tire of the bicyclic *PFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFF me and we ran as fast as we could. To this day I think it's in the top 3 of the unsolved mysteries in Germany, the tire slash from 1996. I stole almost 80 lawn gnomes in 1 week. Costa, give me back my fucking gnome. Just give the gnome. We can't. We broke it. It was filled with ecstasy. Stealing over $1,000, no, $2,000, now that I think about it, in books, including a moral philosophy book. Edit. Wow, that blew up. I'm actually very opposed to theft, despite my corrupt past. When you steal you think you're stealing from the big mean corporations, but you're really not. You see, they have ways of protecting their profits by socializing their losses, like blaming it on the lowest worker on the ladder, and the person who's in charge of inventory will get their ass handed to them. A friend of mine was a cashier at her campus bookstore and was friends with the inventory person and some people who stole books. When that time of semester nears, the inventory person routinely gets nervous because they have to be the mean guy stopping theft. When you're struggling for money and dealing with classes, you don't want to bear that burden. After one particularly big steal, my friend's friend broke down and cried because she thought she was going to get fired. She didn't, but it often comes out of her pocket when she can't do her job. After that, my friend tried to tell her stealing friends that what they did wasn't cool, but they were angsty college freshmen and couldn't have it, so she distanced herself from these assholes. Please think about what you do before you stick it to the man. Oh, and that moral philosophy book was A Theory of Justice by John Rawls. It's a good read, I recommend it. Edit 2. Since you guys are talking about college, I should clarify that while I did steal my college books, most of the over 100 books I've stolen were from chain bookstores, especially from Borders as they were going out of business. And most were classics, like Marx, Malcolm X, and Kafka. I was a weird kid. In 1977 I stole a pack of Fruit Stripe gum while at the grocery store with my mother. When my mother saw me with it in the car on my way home, I obscured my crime by claiming I found it in the basket we used for our gloves and mittens in my kindergarten class. What a fool. She was no match for my diabolical wit. Looks like some of my stories might be some of the worst things. My friends and I used to do random theft, vandalism, and other things. I was involved in a couple of high-speed chases with civilians, one of whom pointed a gun at my face at a stop sign and demanded I pulled over. I did not. We didn't do much planning, except that once. My dad worked for a newspaper that was out of town, so they leased a loading bay at a place that also stored refrigerated trucks that delivered to convenience stores. They never locked the trucks, so we snuck in several times and stole everything from beef jerky to Hot Pockets, to tamales. I also stole a Colorado 2-powered BB gun from Walmart and talked my way out of being stopped at the door when the alarm went off. The gun was tucked in my pants, but I just politely declined to return, and they were like, "Okay, have a nice day." We also stole a tree from a store and planted it in the center field of my high school's baseball field. That was fun.
Like and subscribe for more ducking content.